Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be replacing the front brake pads on this 2008 Toyota Yaris. I'm also going to be inspecting the rear brake shoes because I think they might be worn down a little too far. And I'll probably end up replacing those in a different video. And the last time I tried to take this front wheel off, one of the lug nuts tried to seize up on me. So I'm going to replace some wheel studs and lug nuts on the front also. So all that's coming up here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and get the vehicle set up. Please stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so all of those lug nuts came off pretty easily. I thought for sure it was this side, but I could have been mistaken. I might have the problem on the other side. We'll see. Now, just as a precaution, you don't want to take your lug nuts all the way off with the with weight still on the tire. So, just in case something happens, the jack slips, the tire won't fall off. All right, so this is going to be kind of a do as I say and not as I do type of video. So, when you're replacing your brake pads, you don't always have to replace your rotors. Typically, a rotor will last a couple of sets of brake pads before they get too thin to machine. But when you change your brake pads and you don't replace your rotor, you at least want to get the rotor resurfaced so that there's a fresh face on the rotor for the new pad. The idea is that when you replace these things, you want completely clean, fresh surfaces so that the pads and the rotors can wear in together evenly. The problem with not resurfacing a rotor is that the wear on the rotor could prematurely wear the new brake pad, and you don't want that to happen. So if you're not replacing your rotors, you want to go get them machined so that there's a fresh surface on there. Now, that's what I say. What I'm going to do is not that. I'm just going to put new brake pads in there. And there are plenty of places where I can go to get them machined, but it's kind of a time and convenience thing. And the prices on these things are pretty cheap. So having these brake pads wear maybe 1,000 or 2,000 miles prematurely isn't going to be that detrimental to me because the pads are like $30. And the rotors are pretty cheap also. So the next time I have to do brakes, I'll just replace everything. Now that's what I'm going to do. Like I said, you doing this yourself, you want to maximize the life of your brake parts. You don't want to do this. You want to replace or resurface the rotor with new brake pads. So anyways, with all that being said, I'm going to get this wheel off and I'm going to get the new brake pads in there. So we just got some Duralast ceramic here, pretty cheap. Unfortunately, I didn't get the new brake hardware, but that's okay. So whenever you're doing brakes, you want to make sure that you lube up the contact points where the brake pads meet the hardware. So right in here, where the little tab of the brake pad slides into the hardware, you want lube all over those contact points so that when the brake pads are sliding through the caliper, they don't squeak. This car has almost 250,000 miles on it, and this is the second time that I've done the brake pads. Now my stepdaughter had it for a little while. I don't think she ever had the brakes done. She might have had them done once. But when we gave her the car with like 170,000 miles on it, I changed the brakes right before we gave it to her, and they didn't even need to be done. The point in me saying that is, if you drive your car correctly, you can really cut down on the wear on the brakes, and they should last quite a long time. And there you go. So you can see how much life was left on those pads. You can tell they really needed to be done. They were almost gone. So another thing you're going to have to deal with when you're doing your brake pads is, if I can get the lighting in there, you see how much extra material there is on these brake pads, right? So when I take these out and I put these in, the space between them is going to be much smaller. It's not going to be enough space to slide the caliper back over the rotor, and that's because as the brake pads wear down, the piston comes out further and further in order to apply the brakes. So we need to push this piston back into the housing, and we're going to do that with this C-clamp here. So I'm just going to pop this outside brake pad out of here like this, and we have new clips. I just wanted to remember which side they go on, right? So for the new pad, I'm going to put a new clip on this side before I install that. So in order to press evenly on this piston here, I'm going to use the C-clamp with the old brake pad still installed. So we want to try to get the C-clamp as squarely, as evenly as possible over the caliper and the piston. Now that there's a little tension on it, we'll just slowly apply pressure, and the piston will just get pushed back in. Now eventually it's going to get to a point where it can't go any farther, and the C-clamp will tighten up. So there it is. So now we'll pop this pad out, and you can see how far that piston went back in. And you can see how, if I had not left that brake pad in there, the rod, the threaded rod on that C-clamp would have had to have gone all the way into that piston cup in order to engage. So leaving the old brake pad in there to do that is really beneficial. Alright, so now I'm going to get the new brake pads installed and then put it back on. So you got your brake pad here, you got a little packet of lube. So we're just going to go on these little tabs here, anywhere it's going to contact metal inside of that housing. And you don't want the lube to get on the brake pad itself. So this brake pad is ready to go. I got the new clip on there. We'll just slide it right in. So this tab's got to go down so that can slide in there. Careful. And this tab goes down so that can slide in there. There. So you can see that pad is in there. Alright, so now let's put this one in there. There it goes. Got it. So you can see brake pad's installed. Now you can see there there's a gap there. There's plenty of gap for the rotor. Alright, let's put her back on. And there we go. I didn't actually have to replace any studs. Brake pads are good. I'm going to put this wheel back on and then lower the front, and then we're going to inspect the rear shoes, and then I'm going to call the video there. You don't need to see this twice. This is what I'm going to do on the other side. If I do end up replacing some studs, I'll throw that in here too, but these may be cooperating. Alright, so I got the back wheel ready to come off here. I'm going to take it off right now. And I'm just going to pull the rear drum off and check the condition of the shoes. So this is going to be really quick. Like I said, if they need to be changed, which is highly likely, I'm going to do another video on that, and I'll show you guys how to do rear brake pads, well, rear brake shoes. Alright, so those are stuck on there pretty good. I'm going to get a mallet so I can get that off. So what happens is, over time, you get a rust buildup where the drum meets the hub. So you just got to knock all that loose. You see all that dust that came out of there? There it goes. All right. All right, so the problem I was just dealing with there is there's a nice little lip right here where the shoes have dug in to the surface of the drum and created this lip. And that's why I was having a problem getting the drum off. No, everything looks pretty decent in here except for the thickness of the pads or the shoes. These are shoes. So I'm definitely going to have to change these. And since there's a gnarly little lip on this drum, I'm going to have to replace this drum too. And you can see I don't know if you can see the grooves that are worn into there. And just so you know, and it's actually on the front too, but you have your max diameter, 201 millimeters. And that's this way. On the rotor, that measurement will be the thickness of the rotor. And there we go. So I'm going to put that wheel back on, set this side down, and then I'm going to go do the front brake pads. And if there is a lug nut on that side that gives me trouble, I'll show you how to replace that. Alright, so let me get this wheel on and then get to the other side to do those brake pads. All right, so the wheel's on tight. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and do the front driver's side brake pads, and if there's an issue with the studs, I'll show you. If not, then that'll be it. So luckily for you guys, I did have a problem with the studs. You can see the threads here. If that focuses, I don't know if that's actually focused or not. Anyways, the threads here are pretty messed up, but I was able to get the lug nut off without breaking the stud. So I'm definitely going to have to replace this stud. And I don't think that this lug nut is going to make it off without breaking the stud. So I want to show you guys me doing that. If I have to. Maybe it'll come off without breaking. Which I think it will. Which is good. Yeah, there it goes. But the threads are a little chewed up, so I'm definitely replacing these two studs. Oh yeah, there should be enough room. This notch right here in this dust cover, this dust shield, is to clearance the stud backing all the way out. So what I got to do is I got to get this stud over in front of that little clearance area and hit it out. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's in park right now, so I've got to put it in neutral. So right there, and then I'm just going to hit with a mallet to get this out. Just like that. All right, so I got my studs and my nuts here. I'm gonna put that new stud in. Hopefully they're the same length. They are. Just slide it in just like that. And then you want to use the old lug nuts. Hopefully it doesn't cause a problem. Now another way to do this real easily is with an impact. Yeah, I can. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in park. Perfect. All right, so that's gonna do it for today's video. I'm gonna go ahead and get these pads replaced, get this whole side put back together, and then call it a day. Probably next weekend, I'm going to go ahead and tackle the rear brake shoes, and then I can make a video on that for you guys also. Yeah, so I'll be doing that soon. I'll get those shoes replaced. I'll show you all that. I'm going to get all this stuff put back together, and then that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys learned something, and please remember to like and subscribe.